By 7:15 the next morning, my own dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "Pay up, Renee, or you're not really family anymore." 12 hours before that, I didn't even know that sentence was coming. My name's Renee Whitfield, I'm 36, I live in Denver, Colorado, and for 11 years I was my family's personal ATM, until the night my sister asked me for $8,400 and something in me finally said no. Stick around, because what I did between that ultimatum and 7:15 the next morning is the quietest, most calculated thing I've ever done, and it cracked my family wide open. If you've ever been the one who pays, the one who fixes, the one everybody calls responsible right before handing you a bill, comment ATM below. And hit subscribe, because Silent Revenge posts a new story like this every day, and this one has a twist near the end you won't see coming. Let's rewind to where it started. I'm a claims analyst for a regional insurance company here in Denver. I spend my whole workday reading the fine print other people skip, hunting for the number hiding inside a bigger number. It's a strange skill to have in your own family, because once you're wired to notice discrepancies, you notice them everywhere, even in the people who raised you. Last Thursday night, my phone buzzed at 11:45 while I was brushing my teeth. My sister Kayla's text lit up the screen. "Need you to wire $8,400 for Brooke Suite 16. Vendors want the balance locked in by early next week." Under it, photos loaded one by one: a hotel ballroom wrapped in fairy lights, a champagne gown on a padded hanger, a 5-tier cake shaped like a designer trunk, a rented photo booth built like a limo. Kayla is a hairstylist, 4 years younger than me, married to Trevor, who sells commercial HVAC and is, in his own words, between commission checks more often than not. Their daughter Brooke is turning 16 next month, and Kayla had decided this birthday was going to be the event of the year in our corner of Aurora. She hadn't texted me privately. She dropped the whole ask into the family group chat, photos and all. "This isn't a request, it's an announcement, and the announcement already assumes your answer." Mom Diane replied in under a minute with 3 hard eyes, and she deserves the world. Aunt Priscilla sent a row of clapping hands. Aunt Carol added fire emojis. Dad, who almost never types in that chat, sent one single thumbs up. Nobody, not one person, asked how an $8,400 party would actually get paid for, because in my family that question has exactly one answer, and the answer has a name: Renee. I set my phone face down and finished brushing my teeth, even though my hands weren't steady. I told myself, don't solve this before you decide if it's even yours to solve. Because here's what the group chat didn't know: this wasn't the first time a photo showed up before a price tag. Kayla doesn't send invoices. She sends images and lets them do the negotiating, and by the time money actually gets mentioned, the deposit's already down and the only open question is who covers the rest. I picked the phone back up. $1,400 for a 16th birthday. And somewhere under my ribs, 11 years of quiet arithmetic started adding itself up. If a text like that has ever landed in your family group chat, drop the word "same" below and stay with me. This only gets bigger from here. Nobody hands you a $42,000 bill all at once. It arrives just this once at a time, until you're calling it love instead of what it actually is. The first one I remember was Trevor's truck dying in a Costco lot when Brooke was 7, $1,100 just this once. Then Kayla's security deposit on a rental. A phone bill she swore she'd repay by the 15th. A credit card balance that somehow climbed past $5,000. Each one arrived wrapped in the same sentence: "You're literally the only person I can ask." And I was, because I was the only one who always said yes. I never counted, because counting meant admitting there was a pattern, and admitting the pattern meant I'd have to do something about it. So I kept every receipt in a folder I never opened, like a smoke detector you assume still has batteries. People assume I paid because I had the money. Easier answer, so I let them believe it. The real answer is smaller and uglier: paying made me matter. Kayla was the one everybody worried about. I was the one everybody relied on. Those sound similar. They're not the same thing. The second one is lonelier, because when you're the reliable one, nobody checks on you. They just check whether you're available. So I stayed available for 11 years straight. Here's the sentence I'd have carved into that folder if I'd ever opened it: Love that keeps score isn't love, but love that never checks the numbers isn't safe either. I spent a decade so afraid of the first half that I never once looked at the second. And a family that raised me to believe exactly that was about to send me a bill for $8,400 and call it a birthday present. 3 weeks before that text, I'd started paperwork on a townhouse in Lakewood, 2 bedrooms, a slanted bathroom ceiling, a view of a Safeway lot. To me, a cathedral. I'd been renting since 23 and saving for a down payment since 27, in a separate account I never touched, the one thing in my whole life with a lock on it. My loan officer had been clear: keep reserves untouched, no new debt, don't move large sums before closing. In other words, don't do the exact thing my family had trained me to do on command for 11 years. To them, I was just the sister with the good job who's doing fine. Fine was a costume I'd worn so long they thought it was my skin. They had no idea $8,400 wasn't a favor I could absorb. It was the difference between closing in 6 weeks and starting over. It would come straight out of the one account meant to finally be mine. That, I think, is what turned the key. Not the cake. The fact that they were reaching, without even knowing it, straight for the exact drawer I'd spent years learning to keep shut. If you've ever had family reach for the one account you were protecting hardest, hit that like button right now. This next part is where things really shift. I called Kayla and kept my voice easy because calm gives people room to tell you the truth by accident. I asked what the real, full budget looked like. A pause. Why does it even matter? Family takes care of family, Ren. That's just what we do. There it was, the whole religion of my house in one gentle sentence. Family takes care of family never means all of us take care of all of us. It means the ones who can carry the ones who won't, and everybody calls it love so nobody has to call it what it actually is. I asked again, softer. Kayla sighed. You already covered the venue deposit back in September, remember? So really, this isn't even that much more. I went still. I did remember, the way you remember a dream that turns out to have actually happened. A quick favor back in September, a card number read over the phone so Brooke wouldn't lose the date. You'll get it back, she'd said. Sure, I'd said and closed the folder, the way you forget a splinter until somebody presses on it. I scrolled back through my statements with the cold professional dread I usually save for other people's paperwork. There it was, $1,800 on my card, my name, for a room I'd never once danced in. And if a hold that size had slipped past me wearing the costume of just a quick favor, what else had? Before you decide my dad's a villain, let me tell you what I saw 2 Thanksgivings ago. I walked into his home office for a phone charger and found him at his desk, reading glasses down his nose, holding a credit card statement that wasn't his, Kayla's, writing a check against it straight from the pension account meant to carry him and Mom through retirement. He wrote it the way a man pays a ransom, fast, quiet, hoping nobody walks in. He saw me. Neither of us said a word. He slid the statement under a magazine, and we've never spoken about it since. My dad, who preaches family takes care of family like scripture, has been drowning in the same water he keeps pushing the rest of us into. He grew up in a house poorer than the one he raised us in, where the only language for I love you was handing over money you couldn't spare. He's not cruel. He's scared. He believes all the way down that the day the checks stop is the day his kids stop coming home. Tell me in the comments, has your family ever used "that's just what family does" to talk you out of a boundary that mattered? That Saturday, I decided this time would be different. Not a lightning bolt, just a tired woman at her counter finally asking the hard question out loud. I opened the group chat and typed a request instead of a no, which just starts a fight you lose slowly. I asked to see the full itemized budget before anyone talked about who was paying what. I sat there with my thumb over send, feeling the whole architecture of my life lean against that one button. Send it and I stop being the reliable one. Send it and I finally find out whether they love me or just my availability. I press send. For 4 minutes, nothing, the longest silence my family has ever given me. Then Aunt Priscilla, since when do we make each other fill out paperwork, Renee? My cousin Dustin, who I hadn't heard from since he needed a co-signer. Wow. It's your own niece. Mom, threading her usual needle. I'm sure Renee didn't mean it like that. I had meant it exactly like that. Nobody sent a budget. In my family, a request for numbers is never met with numbers. It's met with a feeling aimed straight at your conscience because the whole system depends on you never being allowed to look at the math. I put my phone in a kitchen drawer and came back to 11 new messages, plus one from a number that made my stomach drop. The venue itself. I'll get back to that one in a second because first Kayla escalated and I need you to see exactly how, since it's the most honest thing about her whole approach. A photo landed in the chat. Brooke standing in a dressing room mirror in the champagne gown, one hand on her hip, trying to smile and not quite managing it. Caption. Guess I'll tell her the party's off because her aunt wants a spreadsheet. She'll understand. It worked exactly the way it was built to work. My chest went tight, my thumb went reaching for my banking app, because a kid is the one thing I have never been able to say no to, and Kayla has always known it. But the analyst in me refused to approve anything just because someone was rushing the paperwork. I looked at Brooke's face, not the dress. She didn't look like a girl afraid of losing a party. She looked afraid of what the party was doing to every adult around her. That was the first crack. The moment I stopped asking whether I could afford this party and started asking who it was actually being thrown for. If you've ever felt that exact tug, where guilt nearly beat out your better judgment, comment I caught myself too, because that's exactly what happened next. The next morning, I drove out to my parents' place in Brighton, 40 minutes from my apartment, believing my mom would be in my corner. I believed that right up until she wasn't. You've always been the strong one, Renee, she said, drying her hands at the sink. In my family, strong one is never a compliment, it's an assignment. Would it kill you to just smooth this over? Just this once. Even my mom had a checkbook where her spine should have been. Peace in this family has only ever meant one thing: Renee pays. I left before I said something I couldn't take back. Brooke was sitting on my own porch steps when I got home, 15 and 11/12, all elbows and eyeliner, a watchfulness that reminds me painfully of myself at that age. You don't have to pay for it, Aunt Wren, she said, not looking at me. I heard Mom on the phone. I didn't even want the ballroom. I wanted a backyard thing with my actual friends. It's not really for me. My niece had figured out in about a year what it took me 11 and a manila folder to name. This party was never about her birthday. It was about proving to a family that measures love in dollars who loved their kid the most, and Brooke was the excuse for a bill she never asked for. I put my arm around her and she let me, which she almost never does anymore. Sitting on those cold steps, I made a different decision than the one I'd driven out with. I wasn't protecting the party anymore. I was protecting the kid. That night, I finally pulled the folder out. If your phone only ever lights up when somebody needs a favor, you already know exactly what this feels like. The dread of finally adding up a number you've spent years making sure you never had to look at. I opened a fresh spreadsheet because a folder is a feeling but a spreadsheet is a fact. Column A, date. B, what for? C, amount. D, paid back. Column D was about to get very lonely. I worked forward one line at a time, refusing to round, refusing to soften. Transmission 8 years back, $1,100. The security deposit. The phone bills. Credit card check. The summer Brooke broke her wrist falling off a trampoline. Car loan that quietly became a different car loan. The venue hold in September. Line after line, each one small, each one wrapped in urgent kindness, each one closing my folder just a little tighter. Around 1 in the morning, I stopped and stared at the running total, unable to make myself scroll down. When I finally looked, $42,150. 11 years. Not $1 in column D. I didn't cry, crying was a feeling, and I'd retired those for the night. $42,150 is a used car paid in cash. Most of 2 years of tuition. A down payment on a townhouse. I'd given my family a house I would never live in, one $1,100 emergency at a time, and done it so quietly they'd genuinely come to believe the money just appeared, the way I appeared every single time they called. Here's what that ledger taught me: I hadn't been helping them. Helping has an end point. What I'd been doing had no end built in because I never wanted it to end. An ending would have meant finding out who I was to these people the moment I stopped paying. I'd been funding a way of life and calling it love, and they'd been calling it the same thing. If you've ever built a spreadsheet like this one at 1 a.m. just to finally see the truth, drop your city and what time it is right now where you're at. I want to know how far this reaches. Rebuilding the last year line by line, I pulled up the actual contracts to get the numbers right and saw whose name was on them. The venue hold, my card, my confirmation number because I'd read it out loud myself back in September. The cake deposit, Kayla's card had gotten declined, so I'd handed over mine just for the hold. The dress, on a layaway plan in my name too, because you've got the good credit, Ren. For 11 years I'd felt like the family's wallet, passive, opened on demand. But a wallet has no power. A signature does. Somewhere in the fog of a decade of favors, I'd quietly become the legal signatory on the very party I was now being ordered to fund. The holds were mine to place, which meant they were also mine to release. Before anything drastic, I tried the reasonable thing because I need you to know I gave them a door before I ever went near a lock. I sent Kayla a calm message. Let's sit down together, build a real budget, something Brooke would actually love that we could both afford. A named number, out in the open. No more surprise deposits. She called instead of texting, her voice breaking right on schedule. So that's it. I'm a line item now. To my own sister. I told her that was the opposite of what I'd said. Together, she repeated like the word tasted bad. You want me to justify my daughter's birthday to you like I'm applying for a mortgage? There it was, the whole difference between us laid bare. To me, a budget was respect. To her, it was an accusation. She hung up before I could answer. Whatever door I'd opened had just closed hard from her side. Then the vendors started calling, and the fog finally hit a real deadline. The venue emailed first, a polite note reminding Ms. Whitfield that the remaining balance was due in 72 hours, and the card on file would auto-charge the moment that window closed. Then the bakery about the cake. Then the boutique about the dress. Everyone addressed to me because everyone lived on my account. If I did nothing, the charges would hit my card in 3 days, straight into the credit line I needed spotless for closing, and a party I never agreed to would become real on my dime. My phone buzzed. Dad. I knew before I even answered that he was calling to shut the door I'd just found. He didn't ask my side. Kayla had already given him hers, and he'd swallowed it whole because her version never asks anything of him except money, and money he understands. He explained the family to me like I'd forgotten the rules. Your sister struggles. You don't. It means something being the one who can. I stayed quiet because silence makes people say the truest version of what they came to say. Then, gently, like it was obvious, like it was love. Pay up, Renee, or you're not really part of this family anymore. There it was, finally, out loud, the price of my own membership, itemized at last by the man who'd taught me the currency in the first place. I'd been paying $42,150 over 11 years to avoid that exact sentence. Now I knew the actual price, and I decided right there that it was too high. If a sentence like that has ever come out of someone in your own family's mouth, comment still standing below, you made it through, and this next part is for you. After a line like that, most people fall apart. I got very, very calm instead, the same way I do at work when a number changes an entire audit. Feeling, my dad had just threatened to erase me. Figure, I had 3 days and I was the only person who could decide. If I paid, I'd be buying another decade of exactly this, another folder, another midnight spreadsheet, bigger and lonelier next time. My dad hadn't threatened me. He'd made me an offer with unusually clear terms: keep paying, stay family. What kind of family charges admission? So I went back to the one place I actually trust, the fine print, and read every contract line by line. The venue deposit was non-refundable, but the balance itself wasn't due yet. I could still cancel and release the hold, forfeiting only what I'd already put down. Same story with the cake, same story with the dress. One catch, the 72-hour clock was already running. Wait even one more day, and a billing system that didn't care about my family at all would make the decision for me. Before I dialed, I sat with the real cost, not the deposit but the fact that canceling meant the secret was over. Everyone would learn the venue, the cake, the dress had all been on my card the whole time. That quiet, invisible martyr version of me had been bankrolling all of it from behind a curtain, and the mask was about to come off, not the villain mask. The saint mask. I'd hidden it for 11 years because being the secret benefactor let me feel needed without ever being seen. At 11:04 that night, I called the venue's after-hours line. A bored college kid named Andre picked up, clearly mid-bite of something, and I want you to know the biggest turning point of my entire life happened during a phone call with a guy eating a burrito. I gave him the confirmation number. I need to cancel it. All of it. He read me the terms and I authorized it. Okay, ma'am, that's canceled. And just like that, the ballroom was gone. I left a message canceling the cake. I froze the layaway on the dress. 3 actions, 11 minutes total, and a decade of a certain version of me ended in less time than it takes to microwave dinner. My hand was shaking, but inside I felt enormously still, the stillness of something that had finally stopped being carried. By morning, they'd all know. No more smoothing this over. The folder was open now for everyone. Before sleep, I opened the group chat and wrote one level message. The holds I'd placed, the venue, the cake, the dress, were canceled last night because they'd been sitting in my name and I couldn't keep them there any longer. I loved Brooke, I wasn't explaining myself over text, and I'd be at Mom and Dad's at 7:15 the next morning if anyone wanted to actually talk. I printed the spreadsheet, 11 years, $42,150, column D empty as the day I built it, and slid it into the folder, now finally emptied for the first time in a decade. I got there at 7:03. Kayla's car was already in the driveway. I gave myself one more minute, grabbed the folder, and walked in. I'd barely gotten the door shut behind me when Kayla's phone lit up, face up on the table, and all 4 of us read it at the exact same moment. Your reservation has been canceled. Timestamp, 7:15 a.m. Kayla's face went through a whole weather system of confusion, sliding straight into horror. What is this? The venue canceled? She looked up at me. Dad looked up from his coffee. Mom froze at the counter, dish towel in hand. Renee, my dad said slowly. What did you do? I set the folder down. I canceled the holds that were in my name. All of them. Last night. Kitchen erupted, but I was the only person in that room who wasn't afraid. For the first time, I already knew every number on the table, and everyone else was only just discovering there'd been a table at all. Kayla came at me first, loud and certain. You ruined it! You waited until the last second because you're bitter and alone and can't stand watching anybody else be happy. Dad stood up. That's enough. Both of you, looking straight at me because in that house, both of you has only ever meant me. Mom already crying. Renee, honey, we can fix this. And that word, fix, always means me. I waited until the noise ran out of gas, then slid the folder into the center of the table and opened it myself. 11 years of my family's love, rendered in a currency we'd sworn for a decade we never counted in. $42,150. One empty column. For faces going pale. I could have closed the folder right there, apologized, covered the $8,400 one last time, and kept my chair at that table forever. That road was right there, waiting. It would have cost me everything real and handed me back everything comfortable. I didn't take it. Kayla, I paid for all of it, I said. The venue, the cake, the dress, on my card in my name this whole time. I'm not showing you this to hurt you. I'm showing you because I love you too much to keep lying about what I've been doing. Dad made a sound like he wanted to speak. And I'm not canceling because I stopped loving Brooke, I said. I'm canceling because I finally started. That sentence cost me. Mom's face crumpled. Dad turned toward the window. Kayla's mouth opened with no sound coming out. And Brooke, who'd come down the stairs and heard all of it, stood in the doorway with her eyes filling. I did not take it back. Every cell in me screamed to soften it, to fix all their faces the way I always do. I let them hurt because the alternative was keeping all of us sick and calling it peace. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. No more surprise deposits. No more holds in my name. But I'm not walking away from you either, Kayla. If you want, we sit down and build something real for Brooke, a number you can actually see. Not under it. Never under it again. Kayla didn't answer. Dad walked out the back door and let it slap shut, fleeing a daughter he could no longer buy peace from in the only language he'd ever learned to speak. Mom sat down and put her face in her hands. It wasn't a happy ending. Nobody hugged me. Nobody said I was right. But standing there in the wreckage of a morning I'd chosen, I felt something I had genuinely never felt in that house in 36 years, like myself. Not the wallet. Not the fixer. Just Renee. Finally and expensively me. If you made it this far, comment your city and the time right now where you're at and hit subscribe. The ending of this one is worth sticking around for. The weeks after were quieter and lonelier than I expected. Dad didn't call for 6 weeks, and when he finally did, we never once mentioned that kitchen, about the closest thing to a truce he knows how to offer. Aunt Priscilla and Aunt Carol both stopped speaking to me altogether. I let them think whatever they needed to think. You can't rewrite a story in a house that needs you to be its villain. But my savings sat exactly where they were supposed to, untouched, whole. My loan closed on schedule that March. I signed the papers on my townhouse and stood alone in the empty living room afterward and finally cried. Not from grief, but from a future that actually, finally belonged to me. Kayla scaled the party way down. A backyard, string lights, 30 of Brooke's real friends. By every account, it was the best night of that kid's whole year. She didn't invite me, a wound I'm still letting heal at its own pace. But Brooke texted me a photo from it, just her and her friends laughing under the lights, no caption but 3 words, "Wish you were here." I hadn't paid for a single thing at that party, and it was the most love my family had ever managed to make out of the least amount of money. 4 months later, Brooke texted me. She'd landed a part-time job at a movie theater in Aurora and opened her very first savings account, and she wanted to know, could Aunt Ren show her how to build one of those spreadsheets because there was a school trip she wanted to go on and she wanted to figure out the real number before she ever asked her mom for a dime. I sat down right there on my kitchen floor reading it because that was the chain finally breaking one link early enough to matter. Brooke was going to grow up knowing that love and a budget are enemies, that you can look a number dead in the eye and still be generous, still be kind, still be family. Kayla called that same week, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, it wasn't about money at all, just my sister telling me she'd been thinking about me. We're not fixed. We may never be all the way fixed. But I finally know how to hold both halves of that sentence at the same time. And God willing, so will Brooke. If you've ever been the family ATM, the one who always pays, the one they only call when the card gets declined, you already know the truth it took me $42,150 to learn. Sometimes the single most loving word in the whole English language is no. If this story hits something in you, share it with the person in your life who needs to hear it today. Drop your city and the time right now, tell me the last time you finally said no to somebody who expected a yes, and hit subscribe so you never miss the next silent revenge story. I'll see you in the next one.